Before we get into this video, I want to quickly tell you guys about my Patreon. It is the platform that I've been using for quite some time, and it is how I was able to do this full time. If you appreciate what I create over here, please consider supporting me over on Patreon, where I upload exclusive content that only exists on there. On Patreon, I upload a lot of personal vlogs, really just some self-reflective things about both my work life and my personal life. I've grown a lot from the conversations I've had with a lot of my Patreon members, and I am so thankful for the people that have joined me over there and supported me for years, especially the people who support me on the level of producer. You guys are so amazing. It means an awful lot to me that you guys are doing that and helping me continue to do this. You can find the link to my Patreon in the description box of this video. Anyway, let's get into today's topic. So today I wanted to do a reaction to a video that I saw in my feed that was honestly pretty triggering because it reminded me a lot of my father. And I wanted to watch it with you guys and share my thoughts about it and talk a lot about what it's like to be a young Black queer child in a religious household, because my father passed away last year and there were a lot of conversations I had to have with myself, and I really wanted to share some of that stuff with you guys because I think it will be helpful for especially the younger people in my audience who are probably navigating this right now. So let's get into this video. And like I said, it may be a little triggering for certain people who deal with things like this, because boy, was I not expecting to have the reaction that I had when I first saw this video.
Food when you're ready, okay? All I ask you to do is abide by the rules of the house and take those out of your ears, okay? I don't want to see it. Okay, before you're done, you come in with eyeshadow, lipstick, a dress on, all that stuff. So please, cut it now, take it out of your ears. When you go out, you can put it in. Or, first of all, you start with a nail. So it's a little bit, until it look like God knows what. So do me a favor right now, and don't let me have to say it again, because it's not going to be nice, okay? Homosexuality is not something that I condone. Not something that I condone. And I seriously mean it. I walk inside here, instead of coming inside of my wife looking happy, her face is long and dropped because of you. And you know what you're doing. And I don't care whether you're 20, 21, 22, but you live in this house, right?
Yeah.
You have a room upstairs. You're not paying rent. You're not paying light. You're not paying water. So the only thing you can do is abide by the rule of the house until you're ready to go out and live on your own, and you can do whatever you want to do. You can put on panties, you can put on dress, you can put on lipstick, you can put on eyeshadow, you can change yourself, but not in the house. Okay? So please, right now, don't let me have to say it again, or else we're going to have problems. I want a peaceful, quiet home when I come in, okay? And you are making it bad for me, and I know my sisters and your uncle and your aunt and everybody might love all Jonathan but listen, you live in this house. You don't live with them. Okay? So if you want to do all of that stuff, you can ask them if you can move to Florida and live with them. Okay? But when you're in the house, I don't want to see that. I've dealt with enough with you. I dealt with the fingernail. You can't even put gas in your car, but you can put fingernail on every time you want to. Okay? Now you're putting on air and you still can't take care of your car. Plus you have a room upstairs that it's all topsy-turvy. You don't make up your bed anymore. You don't care your roommate. All you care about is your adornment.
That's not true.
It's what I'm seeing. So do me a favor, Jonathan. Get the earrings out of your ears before I explode. All right? Please, do it somewhere else. Or you can pack your stuff and go live with your friends. And then we'll see how that works out for you. Maybe that's what you need to do. Maybe reality check. When that check comes, okay, right now you're acting like you're a woman.
No, I'm not.
Okay? And you're dressing like you're a woman.
I'm not.
Okay? Earrings on both ears. So you want somebody to... Jonathan, please, just go take it out. And please, when you're ready to move out, you can move out. Okay? But take it out of your ears soon. Thank you. I come inside it, my wife is as long and dropped. And just listen. about and do what you want to do, Jonnyflix.
Okay. So, wow. Yeah, I didn't hear the whole thing when I first listened to this, and I was not fully expecting to have like a little bit of a reaction there, but as usual, I've got my complex, nuanced thought about some of this stuff because on one hand, there's a part of me that understands where the father is coming from. And when you read the comments on this video, you're going to read a lot of comments that say some version of his house, his rules. My father had a conversation like this with me once. In fact, he had several, but there was a couple that I really remember. And one of them, he said that he never wanted to see me the way I currently am. And I remember when he said that, because my dad and I would have these huge arguments. My dad never liked that I was feminine. And I've been feminine basically forever. In his death, I understood a lot more of why he expressed himself the way that he did, which we'll talk about a bit later. But from my vantage point as a child at the time, it felt like my dad didn't love me. And it felt like the version of me that he loved was a version of me that I knew didn't really exist. Because my dad had already kind of seen the like false version of me that I was presenting to the world. When I was a teenager, one of the things I would do quite a bit is I would wear one thing when I left the house and a completely different thing at school. And I didn't like keeping a secret from my family. I didn't like pretending to be a different person. But now, of course, I'm talking about my father's reaction when I was a teenager. Fast forward, I moved back in after college. And I made a lot of videos at the time on YouTube. Some of you guys may remember these videos about how my father was reacting to me and treating me because my dad was still coming home and attacking me for being who I am. I will never forget, this was 2012 when we thought the world was going to end. And my dad came home and he was like, look, if it happens, you're going to have to go back to being who you were before, And I looked at him like, that's not even possible for me to do, It's not. And it was just so disorienting because, what would happen, because my dad expressed himself like this to me, is when I would go back home, I would cover myself completely. I would wear baggy jeans and a baggy, sweater so that my shape wasn't visible, basically. And it was clear to me that being around my father meant being less myself. And so when I fell in love with my ex and I decided to move in with him, I left my father behind in a lot of ways. I think I probably only saw my father less than 10 times after I moved out of the house. Now, I'm going to say this. My dad was wrong. He was. He was a bigot. He mistreated me. Some could argue he abused me. I spent my childhood being afraid of him. I spent my childhood looking at him as the scariest thing in the world because he was my dad, right? And so when my father said that shit to me, it was like a demigod came down and told me that I was unworthy, and it really fucking hurt. Really fucking hurt. And when I was in high school, I ran away from home a lot. I went to LA and I ended up getting assaulted by this artist that I was working with because my dad made a point of saying like, hey, you can't be here like this. And so what I did was I thought, okay, I have to get a job. And I was a minor, right? I was like 15, 14 at the time. So I ran away to LA a lot and I started working with this artist, and this artist would eventually drug and assault me. And that only really happened because my father said those things to me, really. And I'm not laying that at his feet, at least I'm not anymore, but I certainly did for a very long time. I resented my father very greatly. When my dad passed away, I learned a lot about him. And what I learned was that my dad actually used to be this kind of scrawny guy that was taken advantage of a lot. And you know, my aunts and my uncles were all very, very concerned about people taking advantage of him. You know, I grew up watching my father in the gym, lifting weights and working out and doing all the stuff that I associated with being like a manly man, right? And I didn't really calculate that he was doing that because he was trying not to seem weak. And when I really think about what my father was saying to me back then, what I didn't realize is that when he was saying those things to me when I was younger, he was really saying them because in so many ways, he looked at me as a reflection of himself. And, you know, my little brother has his own collection of issues, and I didn't really have an understanding of this at the time. I was definitely seen as like the functional one, which of course is how I was able to get away with running away to LA all the time because they never checked on me, right? They didn't think anything was happening to me really. And I know that my father, especially because I was adopted, right, felt a really strong way about me being who I am because he felt that it negatively reflected on him, that I was some sort of embodiment of something within him that he was afraid of acknowledging, right? And my dad was very deeply religious, very deeply religious. And he took every moment to let me know that he didn't approve of who I was, right? Towards his death, and after my mom had passed away the year before, you know, things got a bit better. My dad did start to be a bit nicer to me. But ultimately, he chose in so many ways to be my biggest bully. And I do look back sometimes and think like I should have maybe, you know, sucked it up and just, you know, tolerated it. But what I do understand now is that if I hadn't distanced myself from my father, I don't think I would still be here. Not really. And so, in a way, I had to do it. I wish I had more time with him. I wish I had more time with my mother. When I said that I understood a little bit of where the father is coming from, you know, he's basically saying, hey, you're in my house. I don't like it. You're not paying rent. You're also making my house messier, and you're making your mom sad. You know, you are a net negative for me right now. And that's really what he was saying. But of course, you never really want to hear that from your parents, right? You really don't. I understand how he feels because, you know, if I had someone in my house who was doing things I didn't like, I'd be like, why are you here? I pay for this. I didn't work all of my life for you to be here and disrupt this place that I pay for, that I put aside for my peace, you know, in a world where I'm being attacked, and, you know, everywhere else. I want to be able to come home and be at peace. That's why most people have homes. But obviously, as the child, what he's hearing, and I don't think he's hearing it incorrectly, is that you hate him. Like, you love a version of him that I guess you imagine exists, but you don't really love him. Not really. Because loving him would be accepting that sometimes he likes to wear nails. Sometimes he likes to wear earrings. And yeah, it may be something that you have to adjust to. But asking someone to put those things aside for you, you're asking them to relinquish who they are for the privilege of being around you. People, especially when you're a child at this particular phase of life, right? When you're getting out there and finally moving on, like you're really okay with disconnecting from one person so you can finally live the rest of your life. It was a hard decision for me to make to be distant from my father. But again, I don't think I would have survived if I didn't make that decision. And that's the truth of it. It sucks. I wish it wasn't like that, but that's the truth of it. I wish I had more time with my father. I wish that I could have spent more quality time with him. But at the end of the day, he told me that he didn't want to see me as myself. That if I wanted to be in front of him, I needed to pretend to be someone else. And mind you, he was asking me to do that 6, 7, 8 years into my transition. You know, it just wouldn't have been possible, really. Not in a way that would have made me feel healthy. And I'll be frank, one of the things that was really hard about his death is when I did fly to Boston and I did actually meet his extended family, whom I assumed were as religious and crazy as he was, I was embraced by a family that I distanced myself from, that I assumed was just like him. And I was wrong. And I got to have the experience of going to family gatherings as myself. And I don't think that a lot of parents always calculate how deep that is, like how really deep that is, right? Being told to not be yourself, especially for me. Like I got to watch my little brother, who had his issues for sure, but I got to watch him be whoever he wanted to be. You know, he got to be whatever kind of weird, quirky, interesting person he wanted to be, as long as he was a guy. But for me, I couldn't be myself at all. Like everything he wanted from me was something that hadn't existed. It was something he thought could exist that I was like pushing away, but it was never me. And what's crazy is I look at like pictures of my mom, like that I never saw before, actually, from before me. And we look almost exactly alike, even though I'm adopted and not her biological child, right? And I'll never forget my dad staring at me really, really hard the last time I saw him. And when I saw the pictures of my mom, I realized like, oh, I look a lot like her. And that's why he was looking at me like that. It's just hard because on one hand, I get the idea of you want to be at peace at your own place, and if something is distressing you, it's stressful. But that's not how the kid's interpreting it. That's not how they're ever going to interpret it. And it's also, I don't think, the expectation parents should have of their children. You know? You shouldn't ask your child to be someone else so that you can be happy about being around them. I just hope that if there's a parent in the audience who's watching this video who's having these thoughts, I just want you to understand that the ultimate reality of how the rest of my life went with my father is that I didn't really call him, which meant that I didn't really talk to my mom, which I'm still pissed about, if I'm being honest, because I love my mom very, very much. And, you know, at the end of the day, I had to be the one who took care of his death. And I did a lot. It was a lot for me to handle that. He's currently cremated in the other room, for context. It's been very heavy. Because at my core, I think the thing that really hurt was that I always loved him, you know, like I always loved him. And especially, oh fuck, I can't cry. Especially as an adoptive child, right? You have this like, wow, like they adopted me and like they're disgusted with me. Now where do I go? That's why I ran away. That's why even after that guy assaulted me, I kept going back. Because where else was I going to fucking go? And he took advantage of the fact that my father had rejected me. He took me under his wing and tried to be sort of a patriarchal figure for me at the time. And then he took advantage of that and assaulted me. And that is a more common experience for rejected queer teenagers than I think a lot of these people appreciate. You know, like your son wearing nails in your apartment, safe at your home, being around you, loving you, being embraced by you. It is a lot preferable than being on the streets and sleeping with men because you need a place to stay, letting them assault you because you need the money. It really is. And I fear that right now in this era, there are so many parents saying exactly this to their child. In a time where I think potentially there are much greater, much more scary things on the horizon. So on that note, I wanted to share my thoughts about that. I hope you guys got something from it. I hope that there was at least one parent that saw this video and maybe shifted their mentality around this. It's your house, I get it. But your kid is not going to hear that. They're really not. They're really not. You know? If you're going to say this stuff to your kid, be completely comfortable with never talking to them again. Because in so many ways, you are communicating to them that you do not love them. And I think that withdrawing and disconnecting is the most appropriate response to that. So on that note, I will talk to you guys later. Please share your thoughts in the comment box below. I especially want to hear from parents and from people who have had similar conversations with their parents. I would love to hear what you have to say, so please leave a comment in the comment box below. Anyway, on that note, I will talk to you guys later, and as per usual, I want you to remember and to never forget that you are beautiful and you are loved. Bye!